Hi guys, today's project is very exciting. We are making an Easter wreath filled with rustic handmade decorations I think you'll love. And just like that, your home will be ready for Easter. No time to waste, let's do this. Now to start, you will need a foam or a wooden wreath in a size of your choosing. And this one is about 13 inches, and for this one we are working on the flat side of the wreath. And then we will need about 70 inches or so of jute trim that is a little wider than our wreath. Okay, now we're going to sew by hand or sewing machine if you have one, a straight line in the center of our trim. And if you're doing it by hand, please use a double thread just to be safe, okay? Now the point here is to be able to pull one of these threads and make some nice little frills throughout this trim. So it doesn't need to be a very straight or very neat line, okay? All it needs to be is resistant enough for all the pulling we are going to do, which is what we're doing next. Remember, be careful not to break the thread, okay? It's what's keeping the frills together, and we really need it to hold on. We just do it section by section, we're not trying to pull the whole thing at once. Okay, now this is the part where I could pretend this happened on purpose just to show you what to do if you do break the thread. But it wasn't. Whoops! Now the good news is we didn't break a lot of it, just the end, but even if we had broken it further down, there is still one thread left because we've either sewn it by machine or used a double thread, right? This is what I meant by being safe. So if you break your thread on one end, you just tie a knot with the second thread at the end to make sure the jute doesn't unfrill. I don't think that's a word, but okay. And you start all over again at the other end. You will also want to make sure the frills are as even as possible throughout the trim. You don't really want tight frills on one end and really loose ones on the other, okay? It won't look as good. Okay, let's try this again. This trim, as you may have guessed, will be covering our whole wreath. So we need to make sure that we have enough and that we don't have too much of it. So just lay the trim on the wreath and see how it looks. And then we just make all the necessary adjustments, to the frills and the length of the trim. And then, once you're happy with your frills, just tie a knot at the other end and we're ready to go. Okay, now comes our best crafty friend, our glue gun, to attach this jute trim to our foam wreath. And we want to be able to look at it directly and not see any white, okay? And if this means you will have to add a few glue drops to the ends of our trim, so be it. Okay, now comes the time when we get to decide if we use all of it or we cut a little bit off. And let's just say it, it's easier to use all of it than to cut and have to knot that thread again. So let's just adjust our jute while the glue hasn't dried yet and make room for the rest of it. And there we have it. Looking good, right? Okay, now starts the fun part. All that decorating we'll be doing. And as you can see, we have made a couple of flowers, using the exact same method from our Easter eggs video. And if you haven't watched that one, I'll be adding a link to the end of this video so you can watch it afterwards. Now, the way you go about decorating your Easter wreath is completely up to you. Personally, I think it looks beautiful having all the elements to one side, all clustered together, just like we'll be doing next. Next is our lace flower and some cute little wooden mushrooms I painted with my watercolor paints earlier. I just bought these tiny wooden mushrooms and then gave them a red and a white coat of watercolor paint, and then with a white marker I did all the dots in the red bit, and I kind of doodled some lines on the white part, just to make them look more rustic and one of a kind. Just as we love them. But you can use any other paint you have lying around. This is what I had, so it's what I ended up using. Just take a moment to play with all your elements a little bit. See where they go, what works best for your wreath. Just enjoy the process. It really is what this is all about. And you know what? This wreath needs some leaves. Just some green, white leaves. To add a little bit of color and some texture to this wreath. Okay, so what we did is we looked up some leaves online, picked a really simple shape, then took a piece of paper, folded it into two, and then drew half a leaf. Next, we just cut the two sides of the paper using our drawing, and now we have a leaf template. Then we just use it to cut two felt leaves for our wreath like so. And there we have it. Two more elements for our lovely Easter wreath. But we need a couple more though, and that's why now we will be making some rickrack wavy trim flowers. These are so simple to make, but so stunning. All we'll need is a needle and some thread. Let's see how many we need. And for me, this is the best part of crafting, the way it's kind of a living thing. It just keeps changing and evolving as we go. Before we start, we had this idea in our heads of how it's going to look. But as we're making it, we just add more elements or remove stuff that doesn't work. You never truly know how it will all end up. And that's kind of magical, I think. So, for our rickrack flowers, all we need is to sew a straight line along our trim, just like we did with the jute. Except these flowers are tiny, so it's a much quicker process. And now we repeat this process with a straight line at the top of the trim. It's like we're joining what we did with the lace flower and what we did with the jute to make this tiny, perfect rickrack flower that kind of looks like a daisy, and daisies are truly my favorite flowers, so I'm very happy about this. Now, I know this is kind of a large needle for such a tiny trim, but we really just wanted you to see what we're doing, So that's why the needle is so big. And as we tighten that thread, we can see that flower forming. And it's gorgeous. Now all it needs is a sparkly center and our flower is done. Let's make a second. Okay guys, I know this may be controversial, but I'm thinking this wreath needs a cinnamon stick or two. And yes, I know cinnamon is more of a wintry thing, but can you imagine having that wonderful scent the minute you walk into your front door? Come on, we need the cinnamon. Okay, now it's time to glue it all in place. And I think we're ready. It's looking beautiful, balanced, and colorful. Let's go. Oh, gotta tell you guys, this glue gun really is the best possible tool for these projects. And if you used any other kind of glue, other than the ones that glue your fingers together, we would waste so much time waiting for it to dry. Okay, what do you think? How are we doing? Looking pretty great, right? But we are not done yet. Because you see, this is an Easter wreath, right? So it needs something Eastery. Like, let's say that tiny little Easter egg we made in that other Easter video. Let's add that to a hanging Easter egg. Okay, so we will be adding a little bit of jute rope to our egg, gluing it on like so. And then we'll just pass the rope inside our jute trim to turn it invisible. Now you may need to unglue some of it, but you can easily add some more glue or just leave it as it is, no problem. Just make sure you add the egg to the middle of your wreath, keeping in mind your decor cluster should be slightly to the side, okay? And after that, all there's left to do is add a ribbon or a strip of fabric to hang the wreath off of. Just pass the ribbon through the middle of our jute rope loop and tie a knot at the top. Now the length of this ribbon is really up to you. For me, I want it to be short so my wreath isn't hanging very low. And that's it, our wreath is done and looking absolutely stunning. And it wasn't that hard at all, was it? I hope you had fun. I know we had a blast over here. I'll see you really, really soon. Bye bye and happy Easter.